Thank you for joining me for another. My name is Elliot, and this is Freelance Duck Hunting, and this is part 3 in my series of tips for hunting different types of public water. I've been waterfowl hunting for over 30 years, and we are public land water hunters. We love marshes, lakes, rivers, sloughs. We just absolutely love public land water hunting. In my first video, I talked about shallow water marshes. Video number 2, we talked all about lakes, and here today I'm going to be talking about river systems and how to tackle those for your best experience and best chance of having success. But before we get into that, this video is sponsored by the Duck Gun Podcast. That is a waterfowl hunting podcast run by Jordan Fromer, and I am the co-host. If you have not checked out our content, you can get here on YouTube under the Duck Gun Podcast. Check out any of the podcast outlets. We are all over it. Also, we have a Facebook group called Fellowship of the Duck Guns. Come on over and join that. At the end of this video, again, I'm going to be telling you about the opportunity for you to come and hunt with Jordan and myself. But right now, let's go ahead and jump into this content about hunting rivers. Now, the type of rivers that I typically hunt are shallow and sandy. So that is where my experience base is. We have hunted some creeks, but I'm talking about bigger navigable waterways that are shallow, sandbars. So that's my frame of reference, and that's what I'm coming at you with today. So let's go ahead. Tip number 1. Now, unlike marshes, when the birds go to the rivers, and they normally go to the rivers once the marshes have frozen, and if you get the lakes frozen too and the rivers are still open, that's when they're really going to flock there. And the thing is, you've got miles and miles and miles of river, and they bend and they wind. So you can have ducks, you can have thousands of ducks a couple miles away and not even know they're there. So you really need to spend time finding the birds. And I made this mistake early in my river hunting career. I thought if I found open water, I could go throw out decoys there and I am set. And I can tell you that left for some very, very lonely, boring days. You need to find the birds, and that can be really challenging. Now, let me tell you, the best way to do this is hire someone that has a plane and fly the river and look. Now, I've never done that. I don't have the opportunity to do that. If you do, that would be the absolute gold mine of finding these birds. But if you can't, you need to find roads that travel up and down the rivers and just travel them and look for the birds. And when you find the birds, try to see where they're dropping into. Another source is bridges. Most rivers every few miles have a bridge crossing. Go to those bridges, glass up and down them. Sometimes you can see birds sitting in there. And then another option is to find a boat ramp and put your boat on and just run the river. And when you find birds popping up, boom, set up there. Now, tip number 2. Just like on the lakes, these birds on these rivers, they are not there for food source. They're there for loafing. So if you do bust up a bunch of birds, there is absolutely no guarantee that they are going to come back to that spot. In fact, I have found that a lot of times they will trickle in, but they're not going to just pour into that spot. Is busting birds off a sandbar roost busting? Not where I hunt. Where I hunt, you've got a big pile of birds, typically every mile or 2 up and down the river. So when we bust birds off of a sandbar, they will normally go, and you can normally see where they're going to. So you're not kicking them out of the completely there. You're just kind of pushing them right or pushing them left. And when we do kick birds off sandbars like this, we do have success. Now, we've had more success with geese than we have with ducks with this, but we've had ducks as well. And so you just want to be in the river in an area that is highly concentrated with ducks in that kind of mile to 2 mile range. Set up, you can traffic them. You don't have to bust them all off a sandbar. You can see them and you can set back 500 yards and try that in traffic as well. That will work sometimes also. Number 3, we like big spreads on the river. I believe that when they see big spreads, they're more drawn to it. They feel safer. We have had some success with small spreads as well, but big spreads on the river, if you can get them on there, the more decoys you can get out, the better. And goose decoys really, really work for ducks. So don't forget, lots of goose decoys if you can. Mix in some duck decoys. You want as big a presence as possible. Tip number 4. Now, like I told you, the rivers that I'm hunting are shallow and sandy, and it seems to be better out in the river on the sandbars than on the bank. And we have hunted some on the bank and done pretty good, But typically speaking, we do better when we're pushed out on the sandbar. And the challenge of that is, how are you going to hide that? You can try an A-frame. If it's icy out, you can try a white covered A-frame. We've had luck with a white covered layout blind before. We've also had success where we've just had to put one guy there kind of laying on the ice just wearing all white. So it can be very, very challenging to shoot birds on a cold river on sandbars. But like I said, one thing that we've really done that have worked is we've just gone one person at a time, where one or two guys sit back and watch. He shoots, rotate in and out. It's actually really, really fun to do it that way, but do whatever you need to do to get the birds to commit and do what you want them to do. So another tip I want to tell you about now, people will say that spinners don't work for geese. And that may be true in a field, but from my experiences in the river, geese don't have problems with spinners. We have brought geese right down in on top of spinners in a river. So I wouldn't shy away from necessarily using spinners on the river when you're talking geese and ducks. Try it. If it doesn't work, don't use it. But like I said, we've had plenty of success with decoying geese on spinners in the river. Now, the last tip that I've got for you, and this one is the most important one, so you need to listen carefully how this works. In my state, the river can fluctuate up and down. And so again, you need to be checking USGS, real-time water data, and be keeping track of the depth of the rivers at the gauges. We are hunting the river when it's really, really cold. And sometimes the river's starting to ice up, starting to freeze up. So we've had this situation before. This happened to me, where the river froze and someone from a reservoir started letting water out, and the water came and was on top of the ice.
A layer of ice had formed at about thigh deep, and I fell through that layer and was hanging on the side of the boat. And was standing here, and he fell through, same thing. So it was a layer of ice that was sitting about 2 feet under the water, a second layer of ice. Man, that's some spooky stuff.
But it was a lesson learned. So if you're going to be hunting the river, safety is of utmost importance. Watch the depth of the river. So if you know it's really icy out, you can go back over the last 14, 60 days, 100 days, and you can see the depth. And so before you go out and hunt it, you're going to want to look back before the cold front came and look at that river data. And if you see a spike in depth of the river to where it was 4 feet and now it's 6 feet, then you need to be aware that might actually occur. Sand in the river does really, really weird things, and it can cut out holes. I don't consider river hunting overly dangerous, but you have to pay attention to what you're doing because you can die. So that concludes my series on tips for hunting shallow water marshes, rivers, lakes. I'll put those other two videos up here for you to go and look at and check out. But as promised, I want to tell you about how you can have the opportunity to come out and hunt with Jordan Fromer and myself, the Duck Gun Podcast Hunt Giveaway. You can go to patreon.com/freelance duck hunting. I've got a video there waiting for you where it's about a 4-minute video, and I'm going to tell you all about this giveaway and how you can get involved and come hunt with Jordan and myself. So that concludes this series. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If there's anything similar to this you'd like for me to post, go ahead and put it in the comments, or I'd love to get your feedback. You can comment here. You can message me on Instagram at Freelance Duck Hunting. Thank you guys so much. I hope that you are gearing up for another successful season. Be ready for another video.
Now it's a quarter to the clock strikes, and hopefully the shock might hit you like a rock fighter, like the butcher block might quick as lightning shock. I come to keep the lock tight, the door on which you knock right now.